Okay, let's unpack this. What if recovery from, well, what seems like a totally hopeless condition isn't just about willpower or even medicine, right? Like maybe it involves a really fundamental shift in how you approach life, even how you understand a higher power.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into the foundational texts of Alcoholics Anonymous. We really want to pull out the, surprising insights that have guided millions towards sobriety, and not just sobriety, but a whole new way of living.
Yeah, a truly new way. Our mission here is to understand that unique blend, the medical perspective they had early on, the spiritual principles, the community support, all drawn straight from their core literature. We're looking at the big book, of course, but also the little red book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, and the frequently asked questions about AA. Lots to cover.
Definitely. So let's start with how they understand alcoholism itself. It's framed very differently from just a bad habit.
It really is.
As I was reading the big book, that opening line just jumps out. AA is for men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body.
Seemingly hopeless. That's powerful language. It really sets the stage.
It suggests something well beyond what ordinary human effort can fix. Maybe I think so. And what's fascinating is how early medical figures saw it.
There was this chief physician right at a major hospital specializing in addiction.
Yeah,
He actually weighed in saying the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. That was pretty radical back then, moving it away from just like a moral issue.
exactly. Towards seeing it as a complex illness, he believed alcoholics had physical difference.
So it's not just in the head, it's physiological.
That was his theory. He called it an allergy to alcohol.
An allergy. Okay,
Yeah, explaining why just one drink could kick off this uncontrollable chain reaction. For a lot of ex-alcoholics, this idea just clicked. It made sense of things they couldn't explain. Before, it wasn't about being weak-willed. Then it was this physical trigger that was the idea.
yeah. But here's the kicker. This same doctor admitted that, medical science hadn't made much headway really, even with that insight.
Yeah, he said doctors have made little impression upon the problem as a whole, often feeling their own inadequacy. He sensed that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change.
Wow. That's a huge admission from a medical professional. So it's physical but also mental, and maybe something more.
It points to that.
The texts talk about how once an alcoholic takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop.
Yeah, I remember reading that, and they described this mental part as a curious mental phenomenon, right? It's this bizarre situation where someone absolutely knows, the terrible consequences waiting for them.
Yeah, but they're still driven by what the book calls an insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink.
Yeah, but they're still driven by what the book calls an insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink.
They actually use the word insanity. Plain insanity, specifically about that first drink. It's like rational thought just goes out the window in that moment. And once they start, then control is lost. At a certain point, the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. The FAQ section clarifies this too.
What does it say?
It says, once alcoholism is set in, there's nothing morally wrong about being ill. At this stage, free will is not involved because the sufferer has lost the power of choice over alcohol.
So self-knowledge isn't the answer either. Just knowing you have a problem isn't enough to stop it.
Not according to these texts. They state pretty clearly that the actual or potential alcoholic will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge.
It paints a picture of being truly powerless over alcohol once it takes hold. And they're quite black and white about it, aren't they? The FAQ said, oh yeah, there is no such thing as being a little bit alcoholic. Either you are or you are not, and it's up to the individual completely.
Only the individual involved can say whether or not alcohol has become an unmanageable problem. It really puts the responsibility for recognition on the person experiencing it.
Okay, so if willpower fails and self-knowledge isn't enough, where does that leave someone? This is where the spiritual angle comes in, right?
Exactly. The program introduces a spiritual answer which, let's be honest, can be a real sticking point for people. The whole God idea, especially if you're agnostic or maybe had bad experiences with organized religion.
Absolutely, and that's where the flexibility of the program is. Well, pretty remarkable. They acknowledge this right up front.
How so?
While they call the program spiritual as well as moral, they knew people might have an antipathy, a real aversion to the word God.
So they didn't just ignore that.
Not at all. There's this striking phrase. They say alcohol itself can become a great persuader.
Meaning
The sheer desperation of the situation can beat people into a state of reasonableness. It can make them willing to consider ideas they'd previously rejected, including spiritual ones.
So desperation opens the door to open-mindedness.
In a way, yes, and the Little Red Book is very explicit. AI is not religion. It states it's not tied to any specific religion or even medicine or psychology in terms of accountability.
Okay, that's a key distinction.
It is. They say spiritual concepts must be embraced, but, and this is crucial, it's our privilege to interpret it according to our understanding.
As we understood him, that phrase comes up a lot.
It does, and for some people, that higher power doesn't have to be a traditional deity. It could be the AA group itself, or principles like love and service, anything bigger than their own egos.
So it's about finding something beyond yourself to rely on, moving from just pure reason to accepting a power greater than yourself. And they frame it practically. It's not demanding blind faith. More like
accepting electricity. You don't need to fully understand how it works to accept that it does work because you see its effects, you see the lights turn on.
exactly. You see the results. For the alcoholic facing destruction, the choice becomes pretty stark. God is everything, or else he is nothing.
Pretty much.
And finding that power leads to what they call a spiritual awakening, described as a profound personality change.
Is that always like a lightning bolt moment?
It can be like Bill W.'s experience where he said the scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes, but could also be much slower, more gradual. An educational variety, they sometimes call it.
But the starting point is the same. It seems to be, it always involves surrendering those character defects to God as they understood him and choosing to rely on that power instead of self-will or alcohol.
And the texts say there are a couple of essentials to even begin this.
Yes, an urgent desire to get well. That desperation we talked about and a belief in a power greater than ourselves are also essential to success. You need both the push of wanting to escape the pain and the pull of believing something can help.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Understanding the problem as an illness beyond willpower and being open to a spiritual solution, however you define it. Then comes the how, the actual program of action, right?
Okay, so that sets the stage. Understanding the problem as an illness beyond willpower and being open to a spiritual solution, however you define it. Then comes the how, the actual program of action, right?
Right. And it gets very practical very quickly. The big book has that vivid metaphor. The alcoholic is like an actor who wants to run the whole driven by self-propulsion.
Yeah, that image really lands, and they identify this self-centeredness as the basic trouble, the root cause.
It's seen as the source of many of the problems, the character defects, things like dishonesty, fear, selfishness, and especially resentment.
Resentment gets special attention, doesn't it? They call it the number one offender.
They do. They say it destroys more alcoholics than anything else. It's seen as a kind of pure mental drunkenness.
Mental drunkenness. What does that mean?
It means being so consumed by anger and grievance that your judgment is clouded. Just like being drunk, you can't think straight. You make bad decisions, often leading right back to actual drinking.
So, how do you tackle something like that?
The suggestion is quite methodical. List the people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. Then examine why, how your self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships felt threatened or harmed.
Getting really honest about your part in it.
Looking at your own motives and fears. The conclusion they reach is stark. To live, you had to be free of anger. Period.
And this need for honesty goes beyond anger, right? They talk about leading a double life.
Oh, absolutely. Hiding things, not telling the whole truth, even to doctors. The book insists we must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Finding at least one person you can be completely truthful with is key.
Oh, absolutely. Hiding things, not telling the whole truth, even to doctors. The book insists we must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world.
And fear. That's another big one.
Huge. Often underrated by newcomers, they say, but it underlies so much: the anxiety, the worry, hiding bottles, dodging people you owe money to, all driven by fear.
A lot of it. And again, the solution proposed isn't just gritting your teeth, but relying on that power other than our own.
So you do this internal work, identifying resentments, fears, dishonesty. What happens next? Does it lead to outward action?
It does directly. This leads into steps 8 and 9. Making amends, right?
Step 8 is making the list. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, med, and became willing to make amends to them all. The willingness is key there. And then step 9 is actually doing it.
Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
That caveat is important too. So it's not just saying sorry, it's actively trying to repair the damage.
Yes, it's described as a working course of conduct which will directly rectify the harm or injury. And the approach matters.
How so?
They suggest going to people calm, frank, and open. The focus is on sweeping off our side of the street, taking responsibility for your actions, not pointing fingers or blaming the other person.
That sounds difficult, especially with family.
Incredibly difficult. Yeah. The texts acknowledge families have often endured many years of turmoil. They need healing, too.
What's the advice there?
The family needs to understand that the recovering person, even if they seem marvelously improved, is still convalescing. It requires patience, understanding, and love from everyone involved.
And this isn't a one-and-done thing, is it? The self-examination?
Not at all. That brings us to step 10, the maintenance step, continuing inventory, right? A daily look at yourself, checking for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And crucially, admitting when you mess up, admitting mistakes is indispensable, the text says, for staying sober.
It sounds like building a habit of self-awareness.
Exactly. And that feeds into step 11, deepening the spiritual connection.
Okay.
Seeking through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him.
Praying not for stuff but for guidance. Precisely praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
It's about alignment and strength to the path day by day.
This all sounds very internal, very personal. But AA is famous for the group aspect, the fellowship. How does that fit in?
It's absolutely central. Maybe the most unique part, the big book describes it beautifully. A fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful, like survivors of a shipwreck, passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck.
Yeah, that image captures the intensity of the bond. This feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us.
So it's the shared experience that makes it work. It's a huge part of it. A newcomer connects with someone who has had the same difficulty that he obviously knows what he's talking about.
There's immediate credibility there, and no judgment, ideally none. No holier-than-thou attitudes.
And critically, no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured.
It's non-professional support.
Why is that non-professional aspect so important? No dues, no fees.
The founders felt very strongly about this. They believed arguments over money or authority could surely destroy our spirituality. So the principle became to carry the message face to face or in print is never to be paid for. It has to remain a free gift.
Exactly. And self-supporting through voluntary contributions only. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
It keeps the focus pure, and this links to the final step, step 12, helping others.
It's about giving back what you've received. Faith without works was dead. That principle is key. Demonstrating recovery in all my affairs, especially by working with other alcoholics.
They call helping others the foundation stone of your recovery. So, helping someone else actually helps you stay sober immensely. It reinforces the principles, it gets you out of yourself. It's about the happiness they found in giving themselves for others.
And this can mean going to great lengths, day or night, anywhere, even the most sordid spot on earth.
The texts say if it means being helpful, it's serious commitment, and the benefit flows both ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One member is quoted saying, "Every time I tried to pass this on, it became more vivid to him."
Teaching reinforces learning.
And throughout all this, there's the principle of anonymity.
Yes, it's an anonymous fellowship. It protects individuals from public exposure, letting them focus on recovery.
It also keeps the focus on principles, not personalities. The public face is just that members no longer drink.
Okay, so we've walked through the problem, the spiritual solution, the practical steps, the fellowship. What does life look like on the other side? What's the promise of recovery according to these texts?
Well, it's far more than just not drinking. The promise is finding a new freedom and happiness.
Yeah. You'll not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it.
Instead, you'll comprehend the word serenity and know peace.
It's a pretty profound shift they're describing. How does that shift manifest?
Changes in outlook, losing that feeling of uselessness and self-pity, becoming less interested in selfish things and more genuinely interested in ourselves. They say self-seeking will slip away.
And what about fear? We talked about how big that was.
That's a major promise. Yeah, fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us completely. That's the promise.
Yeah. And interestingly, you become not afraid of alcohol itself, but you develop a healthy fear of drinking it like you'd fear any poison.
Ah, okay. So, it's not about constantly fighting temptation, not in the long run. The idea is that you'll seldom be interested in liquor, you'll react seely and normally towards it, and this change happens automatically. Automatically. That's the word they use. The problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. They call this state automatic sanity regarding alcohol.
Wow. And this all ties back to the spiritual path.
Definitely. God produces harmony in those who receive His Spirit and follow its dictates. This leads to a joy of living, one that isn't easily shaken by external chaos. Feel inner peace so you can actually live a normal life.
Go to parties where people are drinking. The texts encourage getting back into the social life of this world.
You don't necessarily have to avoid places with alcohol, provided your spiritual ground is right. Your foundation is secure, and even practical things like finances.
While AA doesn't offer financial help directly, there's an observation in the literature.
Once the big problem of alcohol have been cleared away, the other problems, including those related to finances, seem to work out too.
Fixing the core issue allows other areas to heal.
So, we've journeyed from this seemingly hopeless state through recognizing the illness, embracing a spiritual path, taking action, finding fellowship, all leading to this potential new and wonderful world.
It really is quite a map they lay out. It truly is. From the depths of addiction to, well, a life of freedom and purpose. And, thinking about the big picture, it really underscores how sometimes our biggest struggles can become our greatest strengths.
There's that incredible line near the end of one of the stories. It says, "Calling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others."
Wow, your worst experiences become your most valuable asset.
Exactly. It flips the script entirely. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah. How can the challenges you faced, maybe the things you regret most, actually become the very thing that allows you to connect with and help someone else who's still stuck?
How can your past light someone else's future?